Family, welcome. It's 8 o'clock. Y'all know what that means, right? It's time to talk. First and foremost, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful journey that's been season 7. We've talked everything, we've covered a lot of bases, and I think it brings everything together today with everything that we've talked about, getting back to the frontline techs and just seeing where they're at. I think that's where it all culminates to, right? But first and foremost, big shout out to IMP. If you haven't joined the MVP program, make sure you reach out to your rep. Make sure you join the program, find out about the program, and definitely see what it has to offer. Miss Golden, always a pleasure. Sharon Green Golden is in the building. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Um, Again, y'all see I'm here, right? Time to talk. That started everything. And now learn to listen so others are willing to talk. Both are still available. Go to Amazon. Definitely pick up your copy. And when you see me, y'all know I got a pen in my hand. I keep a pen ready so that we can definitely get that signature for you. What does this mean today? The show, I labeled it Respect the Tech, Advocacy, Burnout, and Breaking the Silence. This is where we're going to just highlight those voices that too often go unheard, right? This is where we're going to advocate for the frontline heroes of sterile processing, shine a light on burnout that's been ignored for far too long, and break the silence that's kept our profession in the shadows. And I'm not saying that everybody does this. What I'm saying is, do we even know how to recognize what burnout is? Do we even advocate for your employees on the right things that have move us to the next level? And what does breaking the silence mean? These are things we're going to discuss today because you got to think every shift you work, every trade you touch, you are, and I say you are because you're those frontline workers and managers and directors that are here, hear me. They're the ones who are safeguarding the lives of those patients. It's time the world knows it. There is a frontline tech behind every trade that gets touched. There is a frontline tech behind every process that gets followed. And now it's time we stand up for them. We're not just talking about the challenges, we're pushing for change. We're fighting for that respect, and we're fueling a movement that says patient safety starts with us here in still processing. So get ready because it's time that we're going to stand tall today. We're going to speak out and we're going to demand the recognition that you've earned. This show is dedicated to those frontline workers who feel like their voice is not being heard. Again, that's a lot of what Learn to Listen is about. Learn to Listen tells you how do we actively listen? How do we take that information and actually have decent and conversations? It's not about listening to hear somebody, it's listening to understand, it's listening to comprehend and move the industry forward. Those difficult conversations won't be difficult if we're actually getting information from those people. When you're talking about you have a reduction in workforce because you have this person out and that person out, are we addressing why they're out? Are we talking about what burnout actually means? That's where this show is going to be. Are we advocating for those frontline people? That's what we're talking about today. And in this episode, I decided that, I know a gentleman, as I tell y'all, I always reach out to my friends and family and say, hey, what can we do? Who wants to come on and let's have a conversation? And this is another one of those big voices that I'm bringing on today. I see Vanessa here. I see Simone in here. I see Carol in here. Thank you. Because I know that these are some of these people that actually move this conversation forward. And this is one of those shows that I think everybody's going to have some say so. So I do want those questions. I do want those comments because this is where we actually start the advocacy for that front line, right? So who did I reach out to? I think back to when I met this gentleman, and it was just one of those natural conversations that we had. And it was all about just the business and what he was doing on his end to further the business and how that looked. Hi, Angela. And we kept in contact. We kept moving, and I seen the things he was doing, and we kept in contact, kept running into each other at conferences, and we just grew a friendship. And we're working on some things behind the scenes. It ain't even behind the scenes no more. I think by now everybody's seeing our post that the Time to Talk extravaganza is coming. We'll get into that a little bit later. But hey, he is one of the people that's helping me with that. So when I tell you that I have a rapport with this gentleman and I know what he brings to the table, that's why I invited him on today. So family, as we always do, can you please give a warm welcome to none other than Mr. Jeffrey Wilkins.
Good evening.
Jeffrey, my friend, how are you, sir?
I am excellent. I'm excellent. I'm really humbled and in awe of being in this type of platform. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming, but I just told them we have a rapport. But for the people who don't know who Jeffrey is, can you introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, my name again is Jeffrey Wilkins. I'm the CEO for Sterile Concepts Technology. We've been functioning at a high level in the region of the Northeast for about 21 years. We specialize in teaching all the HSPA courses. We do healthcare consulting, healthcare education, healthcare engagement, and we do it on all levels. And we just look for opportunities. And now we're actually doing presenting. I had the pleasure of presenting this past weekend. And we're just trying to really expand our brand, but not expand just to expand the brand, but bring people up. I think we miss that. I think sometimes when we do things, we forget to reach back. So that's what we do.
I like that message because a lot of that is what we're talking about today. When we're talking about respect the tech, I don't think people think of it as just, and I want people to get it right. I don't want it to be just, I respect you, you respect me. Right. What does that actually mean to have respect for the people doing that job? How do we recognize the burnout in the people that we rely on to do that job? And how do we break the silence of they're just a tech? That is where we're going to focus a little bit on today. And I just want to make sure that, people understand where we're going. So first and foremost, because, we don't really have interviews here. We have conversations. So Absolutely. First and foremost, when I say respect the tech, advocacy, burnout, and breaking the silence, what does that mean to you?
Well, let's deal with the respect part first. When I think of respect, I think of reverence. I think of holding somebody to a higher esteem than I hold myself. And a lot of times when you do something like that, you got to take self out of the picture and understand that other person with empathy. Because a lot of times we see the surface and we don't dig down deep enough to even understand or even want to get to know them. When it comes to being an advocate, so to speak, for our technicians, they want to know you got their back, and not just in speech. I think words without actions is just a good conversation. And we get that every day, or we can hear about it every day. But you have to put actions behind the things that you really truly believe in. And I think that's just a small part of what advocacy is.
Okay. So I like what you said there. So you hold them to a higher standard than you hold yourself. And when we're talking about respecting them, is that holding them accountable? And, we dare to say that word these days. Are we talking about being just accountable for your actions in a department? Or are we speaking on a higher level?
I think it's both. I think we need to hold everyone accountable. First ourselves, because if anybody planning to be a leader, and those leaders out there know if you're good or bad or just, plateauing, if you are not leading by example or not being completely transparent with your team, they know. We're dealing with human beings here. And I remember when I was a technician, the one thing I always wanted to have was somebody tell me thank you in the department and somebody say good morning. I felt those are the two main things for me, because I could have a bad morning, but if you say good morning, I might change that behavior. Right, so my thing was always making sure that I gave my techs reverence. Just to give an example, when I talked this past weekend, I was telling the attendees that every one of my techs, I know what candy bar they like. And that's simple for you and I. They know candy bar. What is a candy bar? But a candy bar is acknowledgement to somebody that you appreciate what they do, because you know exactly what they like. And if they felt as though you took that much time for that small detail, then the other bigger things you have in hand. So, I just believe that you have to have that developmental relationship with your team members. They're not going to like everything you say, but that's not why you're there. You're there to make sure that first and foremost, that patient is never going to come back with an HAI or SSI. We want to make sure that they're taken care of. And even though we're not seen directly, but indirectly, we should be masterful at what we do.
Now, in that same vein of what you're referring to, and I like the way you do that. That's one of those things that, as you said, it may be small to us, but it's bigger to them because, hey, he got me my favorite candy bar. How would he even know that when you're talking about from the top down?
Right.
Like it's coming from the leader. Like, hey, they brought me just a candy bar to say a good job. And again, that's one of those things where we talked about, is it just that small piece of recognition? Like we get so lost sometimes that, as people always say, why are we always pointing out the negative? You
Hmm.
know, when those errors come from the OR, or we get an error in a tray, or there's this and that, we highlight those things, but we miss over that, hey, that was one in the last 90 days. Like,
Right.
you skip all of the other pieces around that, and we focus on the action and not how to correct the action, versus, you made a mistake, blah blah blah. I think that's a big point that a lot of this advocacy is going in reference to, is like, how are we respecting and speaking up for these techs? How
And
you
you
getting to build that relationship? How you building that relationship to say, I know even what your favorite candy is.
I
Some of
think
that, I
that's
think,
what's
is what's
awesome.
missing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the awesome part about it. I celebrate every technician's birthday. I do that specifically, and they don't tell me. I go find it. And the reason I go find it, I had a great example when I was working as a director at one of the hospitals in New Jersey. My CEO knew my name the second day that I worked there. And he put me in awe because we were in the cafeteria and he just came up to me like, "Hey, Jeff, how are things going?" And I'm like, "Well, how do you really know my name?" He says, "It's my job to know your name." And that's just how he put it to me. And I took that same, recourse. Like, I'm gonna make sure that every one of my technicians, I know their name. I know what certain things about them they don't expect me to know. Because
Right.
I think that if I had leaders when I was going through things, knew certain things about me, then they'll know when I'm having a bad day and I don't have to tell them because they are that in tune with me.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
regarding when you're giving somebody recognition, my thing is that I try to recognize my team in each and every way I can. I don't care how small it is. I acknowledge them in huddles. I acknowledge them one on one. I acknowledge them when we have our monthly meetings. And I believe that that's what made them so engaging. So if anytime I tell one of my team members, I need you to take the lead today, they're never reluctant because they know we got their back. They know they're going to empower to do it. They know they can make decisions that are going to be extremely effective and efficient regarding that patient. So I think, like you said, the advocacy piece is something that sometimes it has to be practiced. Sometimes people just, have it in their DNA, so to speak. But I think that's just a viable asset in someone's behavior that brings about the best results.
Yeah, you got a bunch of like a couple of things here. Um, Angela said, just acknowledging people when you walk by with a simple hello. Miss Green Golden said, people will give you respect and have your back when they know when they know you are genuine. They give you 110%. She said, I wrote a hand personal notes and mailed them to their home saying thank you. Now that's where I say that type of leader, when you see that, that's when you know that person cares and you're not being overlooked. And Angela even said the same thing. That's awesome, Miss Green Golden, because like, how many leaders think to do something so simple
Right.
like that? Like, if that person got a note at their home saying thank you, when you see them every day, but they receive a note at home, and you're still acknowledging, even on your own time, to go mail a letter or a note to say thank you for the job that you did, or thank you for the effort that you put in, that would change somebody's trajectory in so many ways. Hi, Arlene. Arlene, Madam Presidente is here. So definitely that type of, I think that type of advocacy, that type of engagement, that type of, building a rapport, is where we start to do that first level of advocacy, right?
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
Sharon said, I received correspondence from Green Golden. See, that's what I'm talking about. She's touching everybody out here. But I think that's where it starts at. And that's where we get into where we're going to get into next. If you're that engaged or you're that in tune with your staff, do you truly know what burnout looks like?
I'm gonna say yes and no because for me it's been a learning experience
Okay.
because you guys everybody's different. I have three children; they're all different. I can't
Right.
handle my son like I handle my daughter, and vice versa. My youngest baby, she's the go getter out of them all. But the reason why I say that is because my approach in terms of wanting to know my team members, because I want them to know me, I make it so easy for them to know when I made a mistake. Because I say, hey guys, pause. Can we talk? Can we pause them? And they know what pause mean. And I'm like, hey, I blew this one. I had you guys do something that was totally wrong. I said, how do you think we should handle that? So I give them the power to reach out to me to help me correct something that I know could be corrected by me, but to give them that opportunity, that latitude, it works wonders. The other thing is that as you engage your team members, and yes, there are going to be days that they're going to have bad days. their demeanor is different, I question it. And that's how I learn my team members, because I don't question, say, oh my God, you're coming in with another bad day. My thing is, hey, is everything okay? Do you need some time? I know about to go into a big onslaught of stuff. Do you need to take a moment? And they'll come talk to me. My door stays open and they know it. And they told me what my policy was. They said, we know when you're in a meeting because your door is closed, because my door stays open. And they know most times I'm not even in the office. But the main thing that I like about it is that as I learn them, as I empower them to be who they really are, to be better, to be excellent, to be professional, to be great, they're learning me and they're teaching me. And I think that avenue is a two-way street. When you learn your text, they text learning you. It
Right.
gives them that empowerment. It gives them opportunities. They don't have a problem. Say, hey, I got an idea and I want to take head of this project.
Hey, look, I'm about to get mad real quick. Now, Arlene says she's got, cards from Green Gold, and I ain't get a card from Miss Green Gold. I'm upset now. But we're going to talk offline about that, Miss Green Gold. But she said, yes, if you know your team, you can tell that the atmosphere has changed. And that was going to be my segue into the next thing I was going to ask is, what are some of those key signs that you look for to identify burnout in your department or, just in general? Arlene says burnout is real, which I have dealt with after COVID, but there is help for everyone. So what are some of those signs that you would look for? I know most people say, the lack of productivity and that kind of stuff, but is that truly one of the major things you would look for?
I think that's one of them. I don't think it's a major one, in my opinion. Other people may have theirs. I see how to engage with their other team members. I have, like I said, I speak to everyone. I always got to say good morning to everybody. And my thing is that if they always say, hey, good morning back, and then this morning they mumble, I don't say anything right away. I take heed to it. I try to give them enough space to want to have a conversation with me and they can circle back. I don't try to press them for anything because no one presses me for anything. And I like that type of atmosphere. But what I do always do is observe. My supervisors now, I observe everything. I may not say or comment on everything, but I observe everything. So when I have like one-to-ones, which I do with my team members, I have that opportunity to talk to them about things. They're like, oh, you didn't think you noticed that, and that's because I want to talk to them one-on-one. But other things that I have to hold accountable to, I will hold them accountable to. And I think that's a lot. And I think I had one supervisor who trained me years ago, and she said, you got to be firm sometimes, but you have to always be fair. And that's
that military word right there. You got to be firm but fair.
No, it stuck with me always.
Now, I will read these two comments and then we'll go to commercial and come back. But Arlene said you definitely got to own it when you're wrong. Angela says burnout can show up in many ways by call outs, shutting down, isolating from the rest of the team, increase in errors, all those things that we see. And those are just some of the ways that burnout can manifest itself in the department. So we're going to expand on some of that when we come back, but we're going to go to commercial and we'll be right back with Mr. Jeffrey Wilkins.
Trusted equipment, backed by service. Safer patient outcomes begin with the right equipment and the right partner behind it. That's why we created the MVP program, our commitment to being your most valuable partner in every procedure. When you start using IMP patient protective pads or SteriBump, our sterile surgical bump, you unlock more than just great products. You gain discounted repairs to keep costs down, free loaner equipment to keep you up and running, product discounts to maximize your investment, a 1-year new product warranty, and the exceptional service and support you've come to rely on, delivered by a team that's with you every step of the way. It's more than just a service plan. It's our commitment to stand behind you with best-in-class support, because reliable equipment means safer outcomes for your patients. That's the MVP standard. It's service when you need it, support that's seamless, and protection that's built in so you can focus on what matters most, patient safety. Talk to your IMP representative or visit impmedical.com/MVP to become an MVP today. Because when you invest in IMP, we invest in you.
Remember that. They say when you invest in IMP, they invest in you. Check out IMP so that you can become a most valuable partner and see the benefits that program will offer you. Definitely reach out to your rep, your local rep, and see how you can get involved in the program. Right before the commercial, we was talking about how burnout manifests itself in departments. And there were several ideas that were thrown out. They said you can see an increase in errors. You may see somebody who has more call outs. You may see, them isolating themselves from each other. Because I know you mentioned that you can see where people, how they interact with each other, but then you may see a change in that. But, that's just some of the ways. We're going to get deeper into that. But Sharon Green Golden would say, I would tell my team we can't all have a bad day the same day. Patients are dependent on us to function. And true statement. What happens if your whole department comes in one day and have a bad day? What do you do in that scenario? So Jeff, back to that. What role does leadership play in preventing burnout within the sterile processing department? And why is this critical and vital for patient care?
Let me give an example, because I suffered burnout about 25 years ago. And part of the burnout was because I felt like I wasn't being heard. I felt like nothing was changing, and I didn't have nobody to talk to. So what I like to do, especially with my team, is try to get one-on-ones, try to get group gatherings. I always encourage them to have fun with each other. And even like I have one technician, I can always tell when she is having a bad day because she loves these donuts, and I'll bring them donuts in and she won't touch them. But it's a little thing, but it just shows me what her behavior is at that moment, and then I come back and talk to her. I mean, I think a lot of when it comes to burnout is being able to identify, especially knowing your team, being able to have an engaged conversation, having a truthful, honest conversation with empathy and consideration. I think when we deal with our team members as humans and not as technicians, I think we can get more out of them because they'll be more engaged and they know what their worth is. When people don't know their worth, it's like they say in England, when they used to miss the mark, they used to holler sin. If people don't know their worth, they're going to feel as though, why am I shooting this arrow towards this target, knowing I'm not going to hit it? And you'll hear that in technicians' voices or in their comments in certain ways. They're like, hey, Mary did 10 trays. I did 45 trays. You have to leverage that to make sure you have those crucial conversations when it's needed, encouragement when it's needed. Like, for example, every time my technician leave for the day, I thank them for the work that they put out. And I make it my business. If I forget, I make sure I catch him at the door like, hey, you did a great job today. Because what we had those things that get turned over without your helping when it get done, and they take that and they value that. I value what my boss tell me. I don't look for it because I know what I get, but I value it because of the fact that it shows a little bit of appreciation and it goes a long way.
I want to hone in on something for the leaders in the room. Just think about something that he said right there. He said he knows his staff down to the granular level that if he brought in specific type of donut and the lady doesn't touch him, that's an indication that she might be going through something. Do we know our staff to that level? Do we know these little tiny things about our staff that can have you get ahead of the burnout before it happens? And are you willing to address those little things, have that critical conversation or that crucial conversation to make sure we can try to snap them out of that burnout before it becomes a thing? That's where we want this conversation to lead to. When we're talking about being an advocate for, when we're talking about addressing burnout, identifying burnout, are these some things that you've incorporated in your daily function to say, I know when my staff is having a bad day? Again, I saw somebody say errors, the number of trays somebody put out. Those are good factors as well. But do you know those little tiny things? Arlene says, yes. Go ahead, Jeff. If she's on board with what you're saying there. I think that's one of the things we have to look at from a leadership standpoint. What is our role in addressing it? Do we even understand what it looks like? And the reason I ask that, and you're gonna feel how you feel, but can you address burnout if you don't even know you're burned out? I didn't want to start that, Jeff, but I had to go there. Can you address burnout when you don't even know you're burnt out?
Right. Because you can work yourself into oblivion because you're pushing so hard over wanting change and it don't happen the way you want it to happen. So what do you do?
From a leadership standpoint, if you're the one that's going, do you even realize you may be burnt out?
Yep. You have to be honest.
How can you address it as somebody else if you're not even addressing your own burnout?
Yeah, I agree.
Can you be an advocate for somebody else when you're not an advocate for yourself? I ain't trying to start nothing. I just want to ask the questions that need to be asked. That's all. So how can we look at it from that perspective, Jeff? How can we say, what is burnout if you're not even addressing your own burnout because you're steady going as well? Who's looking out? As the leader, who's looking out for you?
Right. I mean, again, I have people that are mentoring, still mentor me. I feel like I'm still, I feel like a senior citizen, but I still got people mentoring me. And I reach out to them. I talk to them about my day. One thing one of my mentors told me, he said, when you start out with a statement as opposed to a question, I know you're going through something. In other words, if I'm not asking a question about how to deal with something, but I'm making a statement as if I'm about to complain, then you know I'm going through something. So my thing was that I had to look at things, especially for me. You know, we should be evaluating ourselves each and every day. Sometimes it's going to be hour by hour, sometimes minute by minute, because we're going to make decisions that are correct. We're going to make some decisions that aren't correct. But do we try to mask it to look like we're still correct? Or do we are really honest? Hey, guys, I blew this one. And my team know, because they'll call it out on me in a minute now, because I give them that empowerment. They're like, but didn't you make that mistake last week? Yes, I sure did. And I made it again this week too. But the fact of it is that I want them to be engaged with me to know when I'm having a bad day. It makes a difference to me. You know, the same way if I know they're having a bad day, I can talk to them and it makes a difference for them. You know, and I think that that's what helped develop a trusting, long-lasting relationship where people want to work for you. You know, where people talk about, hey, we got a great team over here. You might want to come over here and work. You know, so then you won't have 10 people missing from your team because they resigned or, you know, they're out on LOA or something like that or whatever, medical LOA, but they want to come to work. You know, if they see you come to work, you know, every day, they're going to want to be to work every day. And don't get me wrong, it's a challenge because sometimes it gets hard. If it didn't get hard, we wouldn't be human. This is not an easy profession that we work with. And sometimes there is no love. How do you push through it? How do you say, listen, I don't really need that love from you today because I got love, because I got to give it to my team, you know, and when your team give it back. I get something every year for Bosses Day. And they do silly stuff like, they know I like the Hershey's, the little Hershey wrap Hershey with almonds. So they'll put 10 of them on my desk. And they know it's going to take me a week to eat them because I'll get hyped up and eat them all. But again, it's the little things for me. It's the little things. My supervisor bought me a pair of socks. I teased them a little bit. I'm like, well, you know, I was expecting some shoes too, but I took the socks because it was an appreciation. If he took that moment to buy socks for me, not saying I had holes in my other one, but I'm just saying, you know, he took the moment to do that. You know, it meant the world to me. You know, it meant the world to me. So I think a lot of communication, a lot of transparent conversation is needed. A lot of having someone's back is needed. Letting them know, hey, listen, I'm here for you. You know, that wasn't right. I'm here for you. I can help you. Let's help each other. You know, I need you to help me. Because I remember the first crisis I had at my hospital, you know, and I told them, I said, guys, I'm only 6 months in. This is a crisis. Our whole department was flooded. I said, I need everybody to come in. Everybody showed up. I was impressed. I was amazed. I was in awe, you know, but it showed me what I had as a team. It showed me they were looking for a leader that was going to go in the trenches with them.
I think that's important for so many levels. Arlene was saying, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. We need to check on our colleagues. And the EAP is widely underused in health systems. And it's not, I think people are people. Well, I'll get back there in a second, but I want to ask the leaders in the room. I want to ask the people that are here commenting. Do you have somebody that checks on you? Do you have that mentor that's willing to reach out and ask you how you're doing? Do you have somebody that you mentor that you check on to see how they're doing, not just physically, but mentally, that they're okay? I think that's a lot of what us leaders are missing. We may not, you know, we may not show the same symptoms as our techs because we're not on the tables doing trades. We're not going to make those errors and that type of stuff. But our burnout can manifest itself differently. But do you have somebody who checks on you? Do you check on somebody to make sure that we are taking care of each other? That's where I wanted to take that statement. As Jeff said, that even down to the little things, his boss's day and him being an advocate for his people, he can see that they reciprocate that by the socks, by the candy on the desk. They know that he have their back, they're checking on him, and they have a great relationship. Do other departments have that? Do you have that with all your employees? That's where I wanted to try to, you know, take that piece of moment there. Ms. Golden said that burnout is mental fatigue. Yes, I absolutely agree. If Miss Susie is the one that you call on 99% of the time, do you not think she gets tired and her brain gets damaged in the process? We can't expect her to keep knocking out what we need her to knock out and knock out the trays, as Jeff mentioned. Like, I did 45, they only did 10. that can wear down on somebody. Miss Golden says she checks on many people, and I appreciate her for that, because I know that that is something I hear when I'm going across the country. I hear people talk, her name comes up a lot, and I know that she does that for people. Excuse me. Do we have any other people that do the same type of thing? And I'm not challenging anybody, I'm just asking. And she says, I offer helping hands and service that's needed to the team as we deal with the burnout. SPD, PTSD is real. And I see that as I travel and I do these things and I talk to people, I know that to be a true statement. But my family here, Jeff, again, back to the same thing. How do we address it?
Yeah.
I hear people say, I'm just saying that I hear people say, I have people out on leave. I hear that, people are leaving the workforce. These things, and we're short staffed, so we got to work these people more. How do we address it?
Again, I think you got to be really honest and transparent with your team. They know, and this is the funny part. They know I'm not the fastest tray person to do a tray, but they work with me because they can knock them out. But they work with me. They give me my space. They give me my desk. They let me do it, and they'll tease me every now and again and say, hey, you didn't get that tray done yet? I'm like, hey, but I'm going to make sure it's perfect for us. So we're going to get it done. But I think sometimes, just engaging them, show them how much you appreciate them, showing how much you love and care for them. I think my team never heard the word love before, because when I said it the first time in the meeting, everybody looked up. I said, oh, no, I love you. I love you, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be telling you stuff I tell you. I would. If I didn't, I wouldn't correct you. If I did not, I would not be telling you how we can do things better. But my concern has always been, like I said, if somebody comes in here and they don't have what they need, how can we feel comfortable with that? That's our challenge each and every day. Yes, we're all going to have bad days. Yes, we're going to have to lift each other up. Sometimes arm in arm. Sometimes they got to get on our shoulders. But we have to do what we have to do. I mean, I'm talking about it figuratively, but, on an emotional state, on a physical state, because I've seen how physical burnout can lead to emotional burnout. And it does that because they're putting out so much. How do we get them to understand that, hey, you know what? Even though, Sue did 15 trades, you did 45, but she did all the radical necks for oncology. Right. So it makes a difference. So we have 1 month out of each quarter. 1 month out of each quarter. We just don't have the statistics and the good, the bad, and the ugly. We just talk, and I find that to be very helpful. I order food. We just sit down and talk. What's going on? How's going on? What's working? What's not working? And be very transparent. I said nothing off the table, and they like that, because sometimes, your team members are like family members. They have, your sister getting on your nerves. You're going to let her know it sometimes.
Right,
so
right.
Just being able to express that and being able to talk about it, it helps. Let them know what resources they have out there if they feel as though they need professional help. You have to have those conversations. It means the world to them. It definitely means the world to me, and what I also have been doing, I've been having my upper leadership realm. I say, even if y'all come twice a year, I just need y'all here. I need y'all here. I need y'all to let them know what's going on. How do you feel about them? So that way they see who you are, understand who you are, understand that you care.
I saw that Miss Golden said when she was in charge of a team, she made sure to prioritize mental health days, getting people to look into that, take some time off, encourage the time off. When I did a speech, and I do one I have in my repertoire about burnout, and that's one of the things I say, hey, I don't want y'all to get mad at me, but leaders, I tell people I want them to take time off because I don't want them to be burned out. And people go like, why are you going to give them time off? Because if you don't give them time off and they take it off themselves, their time off is 90 days or better. EAP give you time off. EAP give you real time off. You just want to make sure they take a couple of days to refresh and, that kind of stuff. But definitely encouraging that time off and making sure that their mental health is solid when they're coming into work. Jeff, this has been great. I know that, we got a lot more to cover, but we're going to do that right after this commercial, my friend.
All right. Thank you.
In a world overflowing with noise, are you truly being heard? Or better yet, are you truly listening? Kenneth Campbell, industry author and expert in sterilization, is back with his latest book, Learn to Listen, So Others Are Willing to Talk. This book isn't just about hearing words, it's about understanding, connecting, and building trust. Whether you're leading a team, navigating relationships, or simply striving for better conversations, these practical strategies will transform the way you communicate. Imagine a world where every conversation leads to deeper connections, resolved conflicts, and greater influence. It's possible when you learn to listen. Are you ready to elevate your communication and create meaningful relationships? Learn to listen, so others are willing to talk. Available now.
This is a little shameless plug. I tell y'all, look, you'll see it. Y'all saw the commercial. I want to make sure that we understand, these are still available. And they're tools. They're definitely tools to help you, in your everyday communication with your staff and, other leaders in the business. But back to, where we were at, Angela said, in my first manager role, I learned many lessons. I had an employee who could do it all and run circles around everyone. He was always assigned to the sterilizers by himself because he could do it. However, everyone else had to have 2 employees to do what he could do. One day he asked me, why does he not get a second person? It clicked right then and there in that moment. That has stuck with him. Like, when that person is giving you everything and you can count on that person, you kind of don't look at them the same, right? You don't treat them the same way because that person can do it. But are we checking on that person? And that's a good lesson, Angela. I'm glad you shared that. Sharon says, I believe cross-training can help curb burnout. Have anyone seen this in your experience? Is cross-training a method that you can use to, identify and try to put a stop to burnout? And that's having everybody be able to do everything, right?
Absolutely. And I believe that is maybe just one of the cornerstones of it. We had technicians that could do everything, and it was ironic that story that Andrew just presented. We had a lady that could do the same thing. One was like super sharp, but the crazy part about it, she taught methods that weren't really Amy regulated methods, standards and stuff like that. So, even in teaching, she was trying to do good, but, we were still getting people taught the wrong way. So when we started cross training, you start seeing areas of opportunities that was a lot bigger than you ever thought, so it was a great learning experience for me. I got to see some things about my team. I got to show them that definitely knowing to do everything, because you don't know who's going to be out on that any given day, because things happen. So I think that was a great example too. But again,
we talked about that in a previous show. Getting to the right answer through the wrong means is that still the right way to do it? Right. We talked about, no, we don't want shortcuts. We don't even want any of that. We do want to train people the right way and stuff like that. But when you have somebody who's effective, what do you do? But I get it. That's a funny one, because I know we've addressed that before. Hey, once you actually peel back the layers, might not be doing everything correctly, but they're getting the job done, and you just let it go because the job is being done. But we do have to address that type of stuff. Transparency. I know you said something about, addressing, everybody at huddles and, showing that recognition during huddles and things like that. What are some other steps where you show them the respect and advocate for them in those settings? Do you have them do any huddles or perform any huddles themselves? Do you assign projects, or, what kind of feedback do you get for them when making a big decision? Are those things that you go to get them involved in the process?
We do some of all. We have what we call high fives, so I usually my goal is to give out 30 high fives a month. So okay. I make sure that I give them things that I see that they gravitate to, like if it's a thank you, it's a great job, it's like phenomenal, keep up the good work. So I always look for opportunity to do that. The other thing that we do, we acknowledge like somebody who's really putting out and somebody's really doing the way things should be done. We just developed a preceptor program so that we could teach our team members how to be better preceptors, because everybody don't know how to precept. So you want to make sure they have that foundational skill. So if they ever decided they want to precept, it's great. And then we also have an area where we put up like projects for the next quarter. And we do that because we have little small things that I think elevates them to do certain projects but it's also great when we talk about an evaluation, some of the things that they did. So now they get recognition on the spot, they get recognition when they finish a project, and then they get recognition on their annual evaluation. So that way, is always the boost, the most effective outcome from them. I used to always get in trouble because they couldn't figure out, well, the highest you can get is a 5, and mine's be 4.5s and 4.75s, 4.85s. And they're like, everybody can't have that. I'm like, well, I really need to stick by this because that's what they're worth, And when my boss came over, started talking to them, they told her, I said, please be honest, be transparent, be professional. And they told them, like, hey, we really think we should be getting 5.5s. And I was like, I loved it, So I think as we, encourage our staff, as we empower our staff, they look for us for that guidance. Like I said, some of the challenges when I first came in, they weren't doing things by standard.
Right.
You get a lot of pushback, but I asked them, I said, hey guys, if you could trust me for 1 year and I can get you where you need to be, would that be okay? I said, just give me 1 year, and that was a hard driven year, but it was a lot that we had to change. And all the changes that we put, and don't get me wrong, change is good, but when you do a lot of changes, it could be bad, especially within a 365 day year. So we did that. We got through them all, and we made it work. And not just make it work. I started showing them the comments they were getting from the operating room, comments we were getting from our ancillary departments and stuff like that. And I asked them, I said, listen, guys, I appreciate y'all telling me on director level, but if you come past and you're picking up your stuff, please tell my team. And they started doing that. So now my team, they heard it from me, but now they see it from them. So seeing that it really worked. And we talked about it, it's like, hey, we didn't think you could do it, but we trusted you, you got it done. And you challenged us and we got it done, so we can take it to that next level. I mean, everything doesn't always work like that, but and there are times that they do. And when they do, you got to do it. The other thing I wanted to say is that I always celebrate the small wins. You mentioned something earlier about, they went 90 days with 1 error. My team, they used to have over 5% contaminations when I first got there, and they were doing about 12,000 trays a month. And now they got that under 2%. And I'm so proud of them. Even when it dropped to, I think the first one we did was like 4.75, something crazy like that. And we celebrated that. And like, what's this for? I said, everybody get what they want for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then as they all ate, I said, let me just go over something, guys. I don't want to stop y'all from eating. I said, but y'all did a phenomenal job. If you haven't noticed, and I put it in perspective with numbers, I said, this is the change. I said, Dr. Bogdan is one of our toughest doctors. He came over and said something great to me. And then I said, I challenged him. I said, please tell the team. That next week when he came back, he went over and told the team. And they said he's never come over and talked to the miller.
Right.
So I was really extremely proud of them. And I let them know how much I'm proud of them each and every day that I work with them. They can't leave without me saying thank you, good night, and then thank you for doing your work. But also, I always tell them how much they did a phenomenal job to make sure they take care and being an advocate for patient care.
That's really good, Jeff. I like the fact that you do have that type of rapport with them. And I want other managers to chime in or directors to chime in about those type of things, as well as what you're doing to show that, you respect the acknowledgement and things like that. Carol says we lean on our stars to make up the deficit for non-performers. And that's when we burn out our top performers. Need to hold all staff accountable so we don't burn staff out. True statement. Everybody has to be held to a standard that we've developed in the department. And that's where we start holding that accountability, is where you'll start to see the little change and turn. But that's where I was about to go with the next question is how are we doing the, engagement? And that's another part of it. What does that engagement look like with your staff? I see you're doing a bunch of things. I've done some off-site things to get people to actually, be themselves. And hey, this is how we are at work. But when you're outside, be free to be you and do things off-site so that they can enjoy themselves and see that when you're at work, you got to be one way. Off-site, just relax. We're not those same people when you're out. You're out of the hospital setting. That inside we have to be a certain way, but doing something off-site so people can see like. It's not always work. I'm not always this way. I have to be a certain way at work because I have things that I have to answer to the same way you have to answer the stuff. I have to answer the things too. But what are some engagement things that you do for your staff to, acknowledge and advocate for them?
Well, what I like to do, and we've been doing it lately, is that I ask them to go out and enjoy themselves. So basically what they do, they find a place that they want to go and they go. So now they're inviting me. So I'm the old guy, so I get to have fun with the young cats, and we go out, we have fun, we talk, but it gives us a different atmosphere. It
Okay.
gives us a different level of engagement, which is nice. The second thing, and it started with one of my technicians. She's 3 years in now. She called it potluck, and she would just
Oh,
bring
okay.
in. She would bring in a meal like, "Hey guys, I brought this meal in for you guys." So one of the guys, he like, well, I can cook too. So he said, next time I'll bring it in. So it grew, so to speak. So now I think it's once a month now. I forget what day, because sometimes they do it Thursday, sometimes they do it Friday. And they bring that in, they enjoy. I laugh because they bring me a bowl, but they know I don't like hot stuff, but they don't tell me. So I get in trouble with it. But it's just a great opportunity. And I'd love to see that camaraderie, because that camaraderie, it builds the trust and the relationship between team members. And I like
Right.
that, because I think what happens when we have newer team members coming in, they're lost. I remember the first time I stepped in the SPD department, it looked like, man, I'll never learn these instruments. But they get together, they work together, and now they get to the point where they're spending time outside of the department. The other thing I've asked some of the other ancillary departments to do, I said, if my team are really helping guys out, show them in a card. So Periop, the ED, and radiation oncology all came with a card, and they just put a tray of cookies there and like, guys, y'all do a phenomenal job. So they look at each other like, I told you, we keep working hard, we start getting gifts. So I'm like, hey, keep working hard. So even if it's not them, I'll make sure the gifts keep coming. But it's just that I love that type of temperament, because now it encourages them, it empowers them. They want to do more. When I first got there, another one is that when I first got there, everybody had their CRCST.
Right.
And I asked them in a meeting, well, why you haven't looked at any other certifications? They're like, well, we're not getting paid for it. I said, can I ask you to try something? They said, sure, what are you talking about? I said, why don't you get the certification first? I'll keep pushing on my end to talk to my VP and everything to show you what they're doing, show them what you're doing. And I won't even approach them about monetary gain. I'll just approach them about what you guys are doing just to become better professionals. I said, I'm going to go that route. And if it doesn't work, then I have another conversation with you guys apologizing, but I think this may work. Let's try it. They did, and it worked. So now for every certification they get, I think it's $250 now. They get $2.50 more an hour. So they didn't, their approach was that I'm not going to do it because I don't see what the end game is going to be. I said, don't worry about the end game. Let's just do it with the anticipation that the end game will be there. And as they started doing it, they're now working on the CIS, and I'm really proud of them for doing it, And I think sometimes as leaders, we got to be, on the back end sometimes, pushing that advocacy for your team, my team, any team, because when you're able to come through for them like that, they really become more cohesive, more responsive, and they start understanding their role a little bit better. One of the other things we did was that, and when I first got there, they used to get what they call gain sharing. If their productivity is at a certain level, whatever that pot is, they get to break it up between how many team members there is. So it took me 6 months because I had to meet with the statisticians and all that. Like, hey, why aren't we getting it? And when they showed what happened, they were counting their stuff wrong. So I said, all right, let's work on this. So we came up with a formula to take care of the things that need to be counted. And as they did it, I think it was the third quarter, if I'm correct, they got their productivity. And their eyes were wide. They said, hey, I got an extra $500 on my check. What is that about? I said, I think that's your gain sharing. Like, what? We've never gotten gain sharing. So my thing was, when I try to do my part to encourage them to do more, and they see that I'm going to work to get this done, because I'm not going to let it go, because I think they deserve it and deserve even more. They give me what's necessary to accomplish each and every task. And despite the fact that some may be okay days, but when we get those days when it's trauma alert, we got to do what we got to do. Everybody steps in.
I just want to take a second just to shout out Mr. Jeffrey Wilkins here. As y'all can see, he's the CEO of Sterile Concepts Technology. If you are looking at, maybe getting, some more information about him and his team, his company over there, phone numbers on the screen there, 1-800-738-2901, or you can find him at his website, www.sctservice.com. Again, Sterile Concepts Technology. Reach out to Jeff for that added layer of what he's offering for your team. Again, you said something there that I know that a lot of people struggle with, and I know you'll probably get some questions on what the method was that you took to do it, but I know that a lot of people struggle with those extra certifications not being translated into more dollars. Some hospitals don't offer more when they get more certifications. And again, I think Sharon said, way to advocate for your team, because that is something that you don't hear that they do a lot. They may give them for the first one because it's part of their job description, but you may not get monetized for the other additional certifications. That's a challenge I think a lot of people face because hospitals don't just recognize it the same way.
Yeah. And you know what? It is a challenge. It is a very big challenge because what I had to do first was do a lot of research. I researched endoscopy, I researched PACU, I researched same-day surgery, and I researched the peri-op. And I sat with the manager and director and said, hey, how do you acknowledge your team when they get additional certifications? And they were getting up to like $10, $15 an hour more. And I'm like, wow. I said, okay. So I continued to research it. I continued to email them so I could have a paper trail. And then I sat down with my VP. I'm like, hey, we got team members down there that we're not acknowledging what they do. And sometimes they can become disengaged because they feel like, they're doing the same thing. I said, what I don't want is an assembly line mentality.
Right.
Gerald Ford created it and it worked back in the 1920s. It's not going to work right now.
Right.
So when I told him that, he said, what are you talking about? I said, we're not doing widgets downstairs. We're doing trays that save people's lives. If those trays are not done correctly, there's a delay. You maybe even lose that patient. If the trays are done correctly and there's still a contamination, they can get infected. You still might lose that patient. I said, look what they have done for the first couple of years I've been here. This has nothing to do with me. This is them. They're knocking this stuff out.
Right.
I said, why can't we give them certification pay for when they take the time and get an additional certification? First, it was the pushback that they was told to me was that, well, the nurses do this, nurses do that. I said, without these sterile processing technicians, those nurses wouldn't do their job. So let's get that straight. I said, the other part is that where are we at in our umbrella? Are we under materials management or are we under peri-op? When he said peri-op, right, he said booyah. We hit the bullseye. Because you can't do for one and can't do for all. So that was my premise. And I sat there, I did a whole PowerPoint presentation to them. And I think it took 6 months because compensation was fighting. They were fighting like a pit bull not to do it. And I'm like, hey guys, you got to do this. I said, if we don't do this, I can guarantee you probably start losing team members.
Yeah, I think I had to do the same thing. I had to do the market analysis, and I'm researching the Walmarts and McDonald's and what everybody else is paying compared to what we're getting paid, and the complexity of what we're doing to pair. And again, I'm not knocking McDonald's and none of those, but when you talk about what we do compared to what they do, and I had staff that was making less than them, right. So I had to go out and prove our worth to the C-suite and things like that. So I do get the work that's involved, and that's the advocacy that I'm talking about. So that leads me to this last part, the breaking the silence. Why and how do we get techs and leaders to break the silence on what's happening in your departments, shining a light on it, and now being a beacon for those techs who can't be that voice for themselves? How do we break the silence on what's happening in sterile processing?
You know what, Ken? The problem that I had when I first came to sterile processing, like I said before, I felt like I wasn't being heard. I felt like it wasn't my words. This is what we had in black and white. Okay. I think some of the challenges is that if the leader is not advocating certain things and they don't see that example, then they're nervous. And then you have the flip side of things where you have technicians that are not just vocal, but very articulate in what they're trying to say and what they want to see done. And now the leader's afraid. And it's unfortunate. Now the leaders feel like if I put this person up there, they're going to come after me. No, unfortunately, I've been asked to leave a couple of hospitals because I kept fighting for my team, and I said, guys, I said, I don't care about my raise. Give whatever little bit I can get to them. They're doing the work. They're making it look good. They're making money for this hospital, even though you don't see it because you believe the peri-op does it all. I said, they're making money for the hospital. Why don't we compensate them accordingly? You're paying them grass bottom roots pay, but the accountability factor for an SPD team member is through the roof. You got to be literally flawless and perfect. And you don't even have that accountability for the nurses. The nurses can walk away if something go bad and almost like their hands are clean. But again, you have to empower your team, not just to talk, because if some of them can talk and can't articulate what needs to be articulated while, raising their voice, because now they raise their voice, now it comes out, a different way, and now they don't want to listen. They shut it down. But you have to plan for this. You have to work with your team members. With me, I had to have mentors work with me because, like I said, they said, Jeff, You're not going to get everything you want. There's sometimes you're going to have to go through that mud too. But see, I felt like I should always be on dry land. When I say something, it should get done because I proved it. I showed the facts and everything. Is work involved. If you're not ready to roll up that sleeve, roll up them pants legs and walk through, get a little dirty, get a little grimy. And sometimes, like I said, unfortunately, I was asked to leave a couple hospitals. And it's not that I wanted to, but if I didn't leave, I felt like it would affect my team in an adverse way. So I would take the hit, but I just believe that through the course, if God blessed me to live enough, I would actually have the rest of that information, or I come across an establishment or a healthcare facility that'd be exactly where I need to be at. And that's what I got now.
Family, y'all heard that, you know what I'm saying? The advocacy is real, being a part of the solution, bringing the solution to the people that need to come to. That's how we advocate. That's how we break the silence. The code is here on the screen. I want to make sure y'all get the code. When there's no comments and stuff on the screen, make sure that we get that so y'all can get y'all CEU in the comments. There's also the code so that you can get either or. You can scan the QR code or you can actually go to the link itself. It is in the comments. Make sure you go in and find that link and then make sure you do it that way. Ms. Golden, I saw your comment. I'll get back to it when it comes back up. But I want to make sure that we are understanding that part. When you're in that conversation, are you truly advocating for your team? Are you not afraid to be that voice in the room where there are no voices for us? How you show up for your team is how they're going to see you. Are you that person that would stand there and be in the room with them, be in the room to make sure that they are heard? Is that going to be you? That is where this conversation was about. Jeff, I know that, you know what I'm saying, and tying all this together, being an advocate for your team has many, many different things. It comes down to being involved in their daily processes, building a rapport, knowing your team, and going into these other rooms and fighting for your team. I can tell by your conversations, you're very passionate about a lot of that, and you've been embodying that and doing that for your team. Same as here, as Carol is saying, I applaud your tenacity in getting your team compensated until more hospitals step up and follow suit. We will continue to have the retention issues, because that's what some of it is as well, right? We know that retention goes a long way. Why am I going to go out here and get golden crown and y'all don't recognize it? When you know you have people who are very capable to go take the test right now and then pass it, but they won't do it just because they're not going to get compensated for it. They don't see the worth in it if they're not getting compensated for it. Leaders, where are we at in that process of making them feel needed, wanted, fighting in those rooms to try to get that compensation? Where are we in that process? I see that, like I'm in here, and I'll tell y'all where I'm at. I'm here in Minnesota. I'm speaking at their chapter tomorrow, and they got the latest that got theirs passed through, right? So now every tech over here needs to be certified, or has to be certified if they're not grandfathered in. There's so much stuff. I know they're going to go over a lot of that stuff tomorrow, but it's just definitely how are they being represented? Ms. Golden said, she went away again. Sharon said, agreed, Carrie. She go playing with me again. See, since I got to talk to Sharon about this, I would ask my teammates to share their thoughts and concerns with the VP in real time. That's a nice one. I would ask my teammates to share their thoughts and concerns with the VP in real time. I would invite the C-suite to have an informal discussion. Again, how many times have you had the C-suite down in your department? As the CEO, COO, have any of these people come through just to see what it is you do? And I know everybody talks about sterile processing week, but we work, 51 weeks, not 51 more weeks, not just that 1 week out of the month where people recognize us. So are we getting people involved? Are they coming through to see what it is you truly do? Do you get the recognition you deserve, not just on sterile processing week, but any other time? That's where your tenacity, as Carol said, that's where your support for your team, that's where the fight happens. Is not just during sterile processing week, it's all the other weeks when we still have the same issues and problems. That's where this conversation was leading. We want to know who's advocating for their team. Are we recognizing the burnout before it gets to be a short-staffed or everybody out on medical leave for mental health breaks? And before we get there, who's breaking that silence? Who's breaking the silence to say, hey, I'm going to be an advocate for my team. I'm going to stand up. Who's doing that? Jeff, I hear that you're doing a lot of that, and I applaud you, my friend. I thank you for sharing some of the things that you're doing with your team. And I want to just ask you the same question I ask every guest before they leave me here on Time to Talk. If you had to leave our audience and the family with one thought, whether they're new to the business, in the business, decide if they want to stay in the business, or they're recovering from their burnout in the business, what message would that be, sir?
My message would be for them to be transparent and trustworthy. I think those two things go hand in hand. If you lose trust, it's very hard to get it back. If you're not transparent, they're never going to believe you.
I can't say it better than myself. Y'all heard him. Trustworthy and transparent. If they lose the trust, it's hard to get it back. If you're not transparent, they're never going to believe you. That is the message that he's saying. Are we in that position? That's what I want you to focus on. This has been a great episode of learning. Okay, here we go. We got empower your staff. Explain that there will be no retaliation when they speak up. Folks, stay quiet because they feel like that small piece to a big puzzle, but that's not true. Empower them. I think that's a lot of what Jeff was saying. Be consistent and do what you say, follow through. I think that's a lot of what you were saying, Jeff, is like, hey, there's no retaliation. I need the voices in the room. I want you to be a part of what we're building, not just me trying to dictate what we're building. I want you to be a part of that. So what are the ideas? Hey, matter of fact, here go the huddles. Let's talk about this together. Hey, you know what? I messed up. What can we do differently? Those are things that they need from us. Those are the things that we're looking for in our leaders and our staff. Speak up because your voice will be heard. You have leaders out here who want to hear from you. Your voice is not muffled. It's not silenced. We are here to advocate for you, but we need to know what's going on, and we want you to speak up for us. All right? Jeff, I thank you for coming, my friend.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Family, as always, we'll see y'all next week, same time. It's been Time to Talk. Love y'all. See y'all soon. Thank you, sir.
Trusted equipment, backed by service. Safer patient outcomes begin with the right equipment and the right partner behind it. That's why we created the MVP program, our commitment to being your most valuable partner in every procedure. When you start using IMP patient protective pads or SteriBump, our sterile surgical bump, you unlock more than just great products. You gain discounted repairs to keep costs down, free loaner equipment to keep you up and running, product discounts to maximize your investment, a 1-year new product warranty, and the exceptional service and support you've come to rely on, delivered by a team that's with you every step of the way. It's more than just a service plan. It's our commitment to stand behind you with best-in-class support, because reliable equipment means safer outcomes for your patients. That's the MVP standard. It's service when you need it, support that's seamless, and protection that's built in so you can focus on what matters most, patient safety. Talk to your IMP representative or visit impmedical.com/MVP to become an MVP today. Because when you invest in IMP, we invest in you.